Hey, how's it going, everybody? Let's go ahead and solve another Leetcode question. Today we're going to look at question number 283, which goes as follows. So, given an integer array of numbers, move all the zeros to the end while maintaining the relative order of the non-zero elements. And below that, we have a nice example. So we have, let me make this a bit bigger so you can all see. So over here we have an input, which is the array of numbers. And as you can see here, we have the numbers 0, 1, 0, 3, and 12. And what we want to do with this array of numbers is quite simply we want to move these two zeros to the very end of the array, but at the same time we want to maintain the order in which we have these non-zero numbers. So as you can see in the output, we have the 1, 3, and 12, which are still in the same order as they are in the input. And you can see the zeros are at the end. So let's go ahead and have a look at another example over here on the right-hand side. And let's think about how we can solve this algorithm. So now we have this example over here. We have 0, 1, 3, 0, 5. And what would we expect to turn this into? We want to turn this into the following array. We want to have the 1 at the front, then we want to have the 3, then the 5, and at the very end, we want the 2 zeros that we have in this array. So how do we go about doing this? What we're going to do is when we read through this array of numbers, we're going to check whenever we have a non-zero number. So this is our very first non-zero number, this 1 over here. And when we have this non-zero number, we're going to exchange it for the 0 that comes in front of it. So we need to check for whenever we have this non-zero number. And when we have a non-zero number, we want to move it one place forward. So after this iteration is done, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to have the 1 at the front, then we'll have the 0, then we'll have the 3, then the 0, and then the 5. So after this first step, so this is the first step, in the next step, let me perhaps move this up a little bit further. There we go. And in this next step, we're going to have exactly the same thing happen. So we're going to move forward and check for non-zero numbers. So this is a 0. The next non-zero number comes here. So we have this 3, which is non-zero, and we want to move it into the place of the 0. So after the second step of our algorithm, we're going to have the 1 at the front, then we'll have the 3, then the 0, then another 0, and then at the end we'll have the 5. So when we move on to the third step, we're again checking for non-zero numbers. And we are now moving forward, and we see that the next 0 number is going to be this number 5 over here. And now something special happens because we don't want to move it forward only one place. We need to move it forward 2 places. So over here, we're going to need some sort of counter that keeps track of what place we want to move the non-zero number to. So at the very beginning, we moved the 1 into the first place. So of course here we're moving the 1 to the 0th position of our array, because this of course is the very first index of the array, which is 0. Then after that, we're moving the 3 into the place 1. After that, we're moving the 5 into the place over here, which is 2. And after we've done this last iteration step, we have the desired result, which is this. Okay, so how can we exactly do this with, how can we exactly code out what we have happening over here? So let's go over to the editor and think about what we can do to solve this. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to define the move zeros algorithm, and it takes as an input the array of numbers. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set a variable called L, and we'll set it to 0. Now this L equals 0, this variable is going to be the variable which determines what place we're going to put the individual numbers. So first our L is going to have a value of 0, then we expect it to have a value of 1, and then we expect it to have a value of 2. Because these are, well, let's maybe make this really clear. So this is our L, L, L. So we need a way to increment this, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Then we're going to have a for loop. So for r in range, and we're going to make it, so the range is going to be the length of the nums array. And we're going to say that if the nums, if the current number we're looking at is not equal to 0, so then we're going to go ahead and create a variable called first number, and we're going to set it equal to nums L. And we're going to create a second variable called second number, and we're going to call it nums R. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to exchange the position of each of these numbers. So nums L is going to take the second number, which is effectively nums R, and nums R is going to take the first number. So this is exactly the switching of the numbers that I talked about. So what we're doing within this if statement is really the switching out. So if we look at this very first example on the top, where we switch 0 with a 1 and 1 with a 0. And this is exactly what the code does within this if block over here. But whenever we switch out one of these numbers, we need to increment the value of our variable L. So we need to increment L. L is going to have to be incremented over here to plus equals 1. Because remember, at the beginning when we had our L, wait, let me maybe take another color so that it looks a little bit clearer over here. Let me take the color green, exactly. So if we have our L equals 0 over here, we need to make sure that whenever we run into a number which is greater than 0, we also increment the variable L. Because afterwards you can see that our variable L has incremented to 1, and the position 1 in the array, which is, you know how arrays are numbered, 0, 1, 2, and so on. So this is the 0th place, this is the first place, this is the second place. So we have effectively incremented the index so that the next index where the next number greater than 0 is going to be 1 over here. So that is exactly why we need to increment this index after we have exchanged the numbers. So after we've done that, we're going to move on and return the nums array. So after we have gone through this for loop, after this for loop is finished, We simply want to return the numbers array again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a couple of examples just to make sure that all of this works. So let's start off and take a really simple example. We're going to print, and then we're going to take move zeros. And as an input, we're going to add in the input that we had as our example at the very top. So let me add that in. And now let's see what happens when we run this. You can see that the zeros within the number array that we pass into the algorithm, these zeros have been put to the very end. You can see down here in the console output where we have our result, the zeros have in fact been moved to the very end. Let's perhaps look at another really easy example, the one that we have on the right hand side. So we're going to make this a 3, and this is 0, and the very end a 5. And when we go ahead and run this again, you can see that we get the desired result, which is also the result that we have over here on our right hand side. Okay, so this is pretty much how you solve the algorithm. I hope that you learned something from this. And if you did, make sure to give this little video a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. And see you in the next one.